So this latest episode of Tsukimichi, episode 9 of season 2, they just casually changed the endgame in the trajectory of this show with a snap of their fingers. We get introduced to the greater dragon, Ludo, who I don't think I've seen a character this boldly do this, but you can just casually go from talking about how, hey, for thousands of years I lived as a female and I just switched over to be a guy, and here's the joys of doing butt stuff. But also, yeah, here's all this casual information about how things came from another world. Times, actually, there's a discrepancy between worlds, so it doesn't matter when you came from here. A person from 2,000 years from your timeline could have come back 1,000 years before you got here. Oh, and also, here's this casual reveal that there's actually a third option. It's not just stay in this world, leave this world. What about if you transcend time and space itself and become a being that could freely travel between places? That's what this latest episode did. Episode 8 last week, I didn't mean to have a video up, just the audio got corrupted so I couldn't do it. Also very good, casually revealed a demon, and it was just very fun and cute, but the big meat and potatoes and the main dish of this show right now is the episode that just did the most important shifts in trajectory that this show has seen since probably early into season 1, I imagine. I have full live reactions to these episodes over on my Patreon. If you want to see my full and good thoughts, they're over there if you're interested. Jesus Christ though, episode 9? You have an episode that skips the opening, and when you skip an opening, usually that means something big's gonna happen or they're wasting no time. They want to make sure that they do absolutely everything to the best of their ability. And they even skip part of the ending song too. So like, they really used the time of this episode to its full potential. And while we didn't drop a planet on someone, we didn't see a character death, we got something much more exciting, which was this dragon, this perverted dragon coming in. I mean, pretty much anyone's gonna try to seduce Makoto at this point. Hell, I'm pretty sure if Makoto told Shiki to get on his knees, Shiki would get on his knees. Like, let's be honest here. So having another guy pop up pretty much thirsting over our boys, not really to be shocking in any way, but what is how we go from a situation where we're ganging up. I mean, hell, Mio and Tomoe come in, and we're like, what the hell, do they have a tracker on our boy? Like, how do they know he was in danger? Doesn't matter, let's get ready to throw hands, and immediately we go to tea time. And the conversation they have was so great, because usually when it comes to characters who are very, like, maybe a little too handsy, a little too flirty, or even posing a threat, it's usually like Tomoe and Mio or Shiki kind of being like ready to throw hands, saying, don't you dare. At one point in this episode, Makoto's also like, it's gonna be a challenge, but we gotta kill this fool. And I'm like, the comedy directing in this latest episode was so freaking good. I absolutely adored what they were doing. But what he would casually bring up and the way he would explain things was so thought-provoking. The guild cards as an example. For any of us watching the show, or for a character like Makoto, immediately it's going to seem familiar because, well, we have isekai stories that we consume, we have video games that we consume. The idea of a guild card and numerical values like, okay, the higher the level, the stronger you are, it gives you something to chase after. All that type of stuff is second nature to most people because we have experience either watching a lot of isekai with a similar concept or most likely because you play a lot of video games like many of us do. But for the world in question, it was a completely foreign concept when initially brought up, and about 1,000 years ago, give or take, you know, there was a different someone from Makoto's world came in and introduced a video game concept. Hell, the max level you can get to in the guild is based on the highest bits that you could get from a game console back in the day, right? Like, the fact that Makoto very much immediately recognizes, like, okay, that makes sense, but how in the hell would someone 1,000 years before I was born know of stuff like video game? And that's where the reveal comes that time is, you know, it's not a straight line. It's twists and turns. It doesn't flow down a 1 to 0 path, right? Like, it's so interesting because what this means is that prior to Makoto coming, after Makoto comes, there could have been characters that were, you know, say Makoto was born in the year 2000, right? The person who came in, you know, and introduced the whole guild concept might have been someone from the 1980s or something, but that was 1,000 years previously in this actual world he's in. There could have been characters, or will be characters, who come from the year 4000 from Makoto's world, and, you know, it could be 2 years down from where we're currently at. Time doesn't flow down to straight and narrow, and in doing so, it makes it a lot more challenging, because as they say in this episode, with his current mana, he could probably teleport back home. that shouldn't be an issue. The issue comes to the 1 in 10 million shot that he could pinpoint the location and time that he wants to go to. It's pretty much impossible. But if Makoto becomes essentially a god among men, he might be able to become an entity that could freely travel back and forth. Now, often with these types of shows, they realize they don't want to go back home because the life they've currently built in this new one is much more interesting. But I do think, if given the possibility, Makoto would go down that path. Obviously, it's an endgame path, but still, it's a path nonetheless. And honestly, just having another character, you would think we have too many characters. Like, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. But no, throw me more characters because, goddamn, this greater dragon may be a bit of a pervert, but that's really, you know, when Tomoe or Mio calls someone like Ludo a pervert or too much, it's the pot calling the kettle black. They do objectively the same things, if not worse, at multiple points. Like, at this point, it is what it is. And hell, if you really don't want to get down and dirty with the male version of this dragon, he can switch up to a female. He'll compensate for what you want, but Jesus Christ, his personality was very, very fun. With last week's episode, very funny episode. There was a lot of just ridiculousness. We got a lot about the class, and immediately you got introduced to someone who apparently gave Makoto and Shiki red flags, and it turns out was a demon blending in. And I like the fact that you have a situation where Makoto pretty much wiped the floor with the class, but the demon held back in said class, so she was like, oh, I can easily kill these fools, and immediately got a reality check, and we got a cute little dinner date, and now that's carrying on as a relationship, not in the way of romantic, but like a connection that Shiki will be able to use going forward until someone tries to stab someone in the back. Overall though, season 2, you know, it's very interesting because if you look at this latest episode, it quickly shifts away from the school arc. Not that we're done with the school arc, but when you can casually do something like they just did and how quickly it can deviate away from the school stuff that they were focusing on so much, it means that something explosive could happen next week, 2 episodes from now, 3 episodes from now, and we might just never focus back on school stuff if, you know, we can just casually drop some big reveals like we did in this episode. All I know about this arc is that the stuff that happens with the school, it happens for a reason. It's going to feel important and needed. I've enjoyed it up to this point, but plenty of people say, like, do we really need it? Apparently there's payoff for those who don't like it. All I know is that Tsukimichi not being concluding anytime soon, we're carrying this bad boy into the next anime season. And with the reveals they just did with episode 9 specifically, I'm very excited for more. Now, hey, those are my thoughts. I'd love to know what everyone thought because there's so much to dive into, and I love the idea of the time discrepancy between the two different worlds and what it could mean for characters who have come and gone and just how it's influenced this kind of like fantasy-like world. But let me know what you thought and what you hope to see going forward in this crazy roller coaster known as Tsukimichi down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we had that full live reaction over on my Patreon. And hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got Diego Rodriguez Garo, Monster Enthusiast, Makoto, and David Bennett. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care. Have a good one.